Well, thank you, Karen. We're excited to have the opportunity for the residents to be able to drive ATVs, UTVs, and golf carts on city streets. There are some rules associated with that as it relates to state highways and time of day on certain different vehicles, as well as how old you need to be to ride those vehicles around town, and the chief will get into that. But I'd like to thank the citizens for their patience as it relates to opening up full access to these vehicles. We have had ordinances on the books in which people have been allowed to ride golf carts as well as ATVs around the community, but in a restricted fashion. And we feel that as a council and city staff at this time, it's appropriate to go ahead and open the restrictions up a little more. And then we'll see how that works. We can always dial it back down, but we don't foresee any problems. The people who own these have been really good to work with. And I think you're going to see some additional quality of life added to the residents in town to have the ability to ride these around. And with that, I guess I would kick it over to Chief Warburton to talk a little bit about the specifics, do's, don'ts, what people can expect. I would say that this does go into effect next Wednesday on the 27th. The reason for the delay, I've had that question a couple times, is because once we pass an ordinance for the third time, there's a delay period because that ordinance has to be published, and then it can go effective after that. And so on the 27th, I know it's after Memorial Day weekend, but after Memorial Day weekend on Wednesday, you'll be able to drive those vehicles around town. And so I'll turn it over to Chief, and he can explain a little more about the ins and outs and the details of the ordinance.
Sure. So approximately 5 years ago, the City Council passed an ordinance which allowed the citizens of Spencer to buy a permit from the city to be able to drive their ATVs from the place of storage to the nearest exit outside the city limits. And although that has gone over fairly well, with no issues from the law enforcement at all, it was decided that we had a group of people wanting to do more. And because we had little to no problems with the ATVs, it was decided to push this ordinance forward as part of one of our goal session meetings here earlier this winter. So basically what the changes are is the ATVs can be driven on any city street in Spencer. The only exceptions are the state highways, so 71 and 18 here in Spencer are out. So that poses some challenges for the residents as far as how to get from north side of Spencer to south side of Spencer. So the Grand Avenue Bridge is out. It's off limits. There is no way to get a permit from the state. So the only way to get from north end to south end legally is to go around on the bypass. Now, ATVs are going to be allowed to be driven 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as long as they get a permit from the state to register their ATVs. Now, the drivers of those ATVs have to be 16 years of age or older, have a valid Class C license or higher, but 16 and 17-year-olds have to have the ATV safety certificate, but 18 years old, you do not. So otherwise, there's really not a whole lot of restrictions. They have to obey the speed limit, and just like any other motor vehicle in Spencer. Now, crossing Grand Avenue, Highway 71 and 18, you can make a direct crossing of the roadway at any point at any intersection, as long as it's a 90-degree crossing of that roadway, but you cannot drive on such roadways. So you're going to see a couple of signs over on East Park Street and West Park Street, and then on the 4th Street South, reminding ATV riders that they will not be allowed over the bridge. Now, golf carts are a little bit different. Golf carts do not have to be registered with the city of Spencer at all. You still have to have a valid Class C driver's license. Same restrictions apply. They cannot drive on 71 or Highway 18. You can only make the crossings, the direct 90-degree crossings, but they're only going to be allowed to be driven from sunrise to sunset. And the other additional requirement is the golf carts have to have a slow-moving vehicle sign and a safety flag attached to their golf cart. So some questions have come up of, what size sign do we have to have? It is the traditional slow-moving vehicle sign that is required, and that has been in part of the ordinance since 1984. So nothing has changed in that aspect at all. And in fact, when we started looking at some of the other data from the other surrounding towns that allow golf carts, they were all very similar. All had to have a slow-moving vehicle sign and the safety flag. So I see if at some point in time, if the golf carts progress and we don't have any issues with them, I would assume that they might be looked at in the near future as far as opening that up to extended hours past that. But it all depends how the citizens of Spencer react to this ordinance and how the citizens use it, if we have any issues or problems with that. So the lighting is required on the ATVs past sunset. So after your sunset, you have to have your headlights and tail lights and brake lights, all that good stuff. But during the day, they do not. So same way with the golf carts. They don't have to have lights on their cart as either, just up the slow moving vehicle sign. As long as they get registered through the state of Iowa, get their sticker on their ATV, they'll be good to go as far as registration. The permit for the city is no longer required. So insurances, that's the other question here that seems to come up. They still have to have insurance, just like your motor vehicle. When you get your insurance card, you have to carry proof of insurance on both your golf carts and your ATVs. So those requirements are all still the same. All the traditional motor vehicle laws apply. Golf carts, though, they ask you go as far over to the right-hand side of the roadway as possible to allow for vehicles, obviously, to pass. There's no riding two abreast in a lane or anything like that. And the other exception for golf carts is that they do not allow golf carts to be parked on the roadway. And that's simply because they are not required to be registered. There is no way for law enforcement to determine who the actual owner of this golf cart is without actually making contact with the owner. So there is no parking on city streets, and that's also been in effect since 1984 as well. There's no ATVs on any of the trails, no motor vehicles at all on any of the trails or any other. It may be tempting to drive it on the city parks or anything like that, but they are not allowed. The only places they can go is where a traditional motor vehicle is allowed. Golf carts, ATVs, the drivers are encouraged to use hand signals, which is required by state law, both for ATVs and golf carts. So they still have to use the signals, and we ask that drivers just act responsibly so that way we can try to avoid any potential hazards or accidents going forward. You can go to the state of Iowa. You can look up hand signals there. You can go to the DOT's website. You can also see that on their website, as well as you can pick up a copy of any of these ordinances here at City Hall, at the police department, the recorder's office over at the administration building, as well as I've dropped off copies of the ordinance at the municipal golf course and the country club.
Happy that we're moving forward with these ordinances. They passed 7-0 on all three readings. We did have a further discussion back in committee a little bit about golf carts, but I'd like to thank the council 5 years ago, as Chief mentioned, who passed the initial ordinances. It was a highly debated topic at that time, and as Mark likes to say, we do things incrementally. We do them in steps. So that was the first step, and as the chief alluded to, we've had very minimal problems. Everybody's been responsible, and so at this time, we felt it was time to open it up citywide and allow people to drive them around their neighborhoods. And on the weekends, we've had a lot of people who will drive actually in the country and town to town, and they miss the opportunity to come into Spencer to either gas up or eat or things like that. So a lot of families will use ATVs, UTVs from a recreational perspective, and I think this is a good step towards helping them live a better life here in town if they would choose to do this. So I appreciate the council and staff and Don Hemphill for all the work researching the different ordinances around us in towns that have this. I know Chief has done a lot of statistical analysis on towns that have these ordinances. Have they had problems? Have they had arrests? And it's all very minimal. So we hope that we'll see minimal impact here from the negative standpoint, and that it'll stay positive, and appreciate everybody's patience and passion. We had several people reach out and are inquisitive about this, and it is passed, it is done, and so we'll move forward with it. On another note, the governor announced some additional openings that will occur on the 27th and the 1st, and so as a council, we'll probably, I have not talked to Amanda yet, but I think we will probably have a special meeting before the next council meeting, which would be June 1st, just to, if there's any actions we need to take related to ball diamonds or pool or anything like that that the governor mentioned, we'll at least have those discussions and then make a possible decision. But we're like everybody else. We find out the same time everybody else does when she makes an announcement, and so now we're scrambling, trying to figure out, well, what are the implications of those announcements and how do we handle that from the city side of things. And so we appreciate everybody's patience during this pandemic. As we like to say, it's unprecedented. There's no playbook. It hasn't happened before. So we're trying to figure everything out as well as the citizens. So appreciate your time and patience. Campgrounds are open about every other campsite. We've had a question on why is that? Because our campgrounds are packed fairly tight, and we still need to honor the social distance requirement that the governor still does have in place. So in order to keep campers at least 6 feet apart guaranteed when you're on your camp spot, if we were right next to each other, you couldn't do that. And so it's every other right now, and the park staff has done a nice job laying out a plan for that. And as those restrictions ease, we'll take a look at that as well. But the campgrounds. She also talked today about shelter houses and bathroom facilities and things of that nature. Currently, right now, it's a self-contained situation where those facilities are not open. She did ease those restrictions coming up here at the end of the month, and so we've not made a decision yet from the city side of things if we'll open those facilities, but based on what she has announced, we'll have to take a look at that.
We've had a couple different calls for service regarding people not observing the governor's proclamation, but so far all that's been needed is for us to reach out to those people, clarify some of the proclamations, and show them some of the information, and so far we've gotten compliance.
Stay safe, follow the recommendations, and be responsible. And remember, it's not just about your personal freedoms, it's about the freedoms of those around you as well. And there are at-risk people in the country and our community. You know, of course, those are the elderly, but also immune-compromised people. The state is starting to see some virus impacts in children as well. I know they're taking a look at that. And so remember, it's not just about what you do, but it's about what you do and how it impacts those that are potentially around you. And so just please be mindful of that. Also be mindful and respectful of the businesses and the employees that you go in and out of. Those business owners and the employees, staff members are doing everything that they can to create a safe environment for you to walk into. And so we would encourage everyone to honor that, respect that, be patient with that, but then also take the precautions from your side of things as a patron to keep the workers safe as well. So with that, I would just like to say, God bless, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.